All right, good day, everyone. Let me say Freeman again. I still am. I'm just going to give you a quick recap um, as an introduction. But obviously, I think this is the fifth CPNC session this UCC astrological year. So um, we've done the great year and the zodiacs, and then a couple of shape ones. So this is the third shape of my chart one, and the fifth in total. So I'm not going to go through all of these background slides, but just for anyone who hasn't seen the other ones, you can pause these if you want to know more about me. But this is a bit of my background, and this is what I've done since I quit my job. And that's more of what I've done since I quit my job. About, yeah, 20 years ago now. So that was cool. And these are my passions, which you guys have seen before. But if you're new and you want to pause it, feel free. And these are my what I call my life learnings. So basically, my thing is, how does the universe work? And as I always say, there's not really an answer, but it's fun trying to find out. And those are my websites, which you can get at letmesayfreeman.net if you want to find out some more. Okay, and what's the date today? Kathleen, this is the 24th of Leo. Leo's the fifth month and goes with the fifth sign in the fifth house. And we're in the year 13,525, which if you saw the first workshop on the great year, you'll know what I'm on about. And if you didn't, you'll probably say, huh? But that's where we are. And you can see there, can you see my cursor waving around? So just to confirm, that's Wednesday, the 14th of August in the SMEG. But of course, it's Thursday, the 15th, I guess, for you guys down under. But that's a shot from the UCC app. So you can see where we are in the year. We started over here at the Aries equinox, and the sun's gone all the way up to the Cancer solstice, and then we come down through Cancer and through Leo, and we're on day 147 of the year in the 15th decan in the fifth triad month of Leo. All right, so that's where we are. So we've actually just passed mid-summer of heat, and we've just started the autumn of light. So this bit's the fall down to mid-Scorpio, right? So on the calendar, that's there. That's the 24th of Leo for anyone who's got a UCC calendar. And okay, so let's get into it. So as you know, all of these sessions are part of Project Freeman, and which I call the journey home, back to the source, back to being one with everything. And Project Freeman has these things that I call wisdom workouts. So basically, I'm sharing my knowledge, and you've just got to add experience by using what you learn. And knowledge plus experience equals wisdom, apparently. God, this mouse is sensitive. Okay,
Litmus, did
and
you, is that what you say, or I've never heard that knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Where does that come from? I know it's probably not related to this, but curious.
yeah, that's one of my things, but
Oh,
I've been saying that for years, but I don't know if I made it up or if I heard it somewhere else. But yeah, it makes sense to me, you know. Like if no one claims it, I'm going to take credit, all right? Um, yeah, so Project Freeman's in three parts: free the body through Freeman strategy, free the mind. Uh, and when I did that, I got messages from home, as I call it. And part three, free the spirit, all is one. All right, so we're in part three with all of these things, these workshops we're doing. All is one, and it's the reuniting of science and spirituality for a sciential experience. So a bit of wordplay there for you. And each part of Project Freeman's in 3 parts. So there's 9 phases altogether. And we're going to be looking at some more of phase 7 that I call astronomology. So that's reuniting astronomy and astrology. So the left brain, the right brain, the masculine and the feminine. So you get the data and the physics and the metaphysics. So you get the full picture. And of course, astrology is one of the Hermetic arts because it exhibits the Hermetic principles, particularly the one called correspondence, which we know as above, so below. And it's derived from sacred geometry, which is another workshop. And the etymology of astrology is a telling of the celestial bodies. So that's the stars, the planets, and the constellations. And it's a tool to help us like know thyself through astropsychology, to realize our similarities and celebrate our differences so that we can be ace and have acceptance of each other and ourselves and compassion and empathy for each other. And to help us realize the gaps we've got in our lives and how to balance them and thereby raise our conscious vibration. All right, so that's a quick recap. And of course, as always, don't forget your iPod. So with all of this stuff, just remember what your perspective is, where are you looking from, what's your orientation, so which way are you facing, and what's your direction, which way are you going, or which way are things moving. And if you try and remember that, hopefully you won't get mixed up. All right. So we've done a few of these the shape of my chart sessions. This is the third one. The first one was in Taurus on the 10th of Taurus, and that was the mega like 3.5 hour one. That went on till like 2 in the morning or something, but that was fun, a lot of fun. And in that one, we looked at the shape of our charts being the signs, the houses, the aspects and the planets and the energies of all of those things. So that's a quick 1 slide reminder of that workshop. So the planets, that's the what and the who, the actors in our play or movie. And the houses are the scenes that the actors are playing in. The aspects are how and with who they're interacting with, which are the characters in the movie. And of course, the P is the P is the planets, and the S is the signs. So that's the characters and costumes the actors are wearing. And all of those things, all of those 4 things have different energies that they give us at birth. All right, so that's a quick summary of that one. And then we add shape 2, which we call syncing with the cycles. And that was in Gemini, about a month after the first one. And in that one, we looked at how to sync and work with the solar cycle throughout the year, the new and full moon cycles every month, and to set actions depending on the sign, the collective sign that the moons are in, and the houses that affect us individually that they're in, and how to go with the flow of the as above, so below. And we also looked at planetary transits, which of course all have their own cycle lengths. All right, so that's what we did in the first 2 sessions. But this one, tonight or this morning, depending where you are, this rising or this fading is it's the shape of my chart 3. And this one's about lifetime astrology. And it's the 5th CPNC one. Okay, so what we're going to do, in this wisdom workout, we're going to show ourselves how the houses of astrology are associated with the human cycle of growth, life cycle. We're going to look at the houses and their signs, how they energize the key phases of our lives and our endeavors, and how to interpret the meanings of the planets and their aspects to each other as key people and events in our lives. Okay. So any Any questions about the agenda before we get stuck into it? No? Be good? All right. All right, you guys over there? Cool. Got a couple live in the room as well here. Okay, so lifetime astrology. So if we let me close my I might get the odd notification coming up, but I don't want to close my browser in case I close my Zoom by mistake. So um right, cycles. Yeah, so in our birth charts, we pass through all 12 houses of our chart every day with the Earth's rotation. So the Earth goes through all 12 houses each day, but every month we the moon goes all the way around our chart through all the houses, so we can follow that cycle. And then, of course, every year as we orbit around the sun, from our perspective, the sun goes through all our 12 houses. So we can look at which house we're in, each day, each month, and each year. So we talked about that. We talked about that last time. But with lifetime astrology, we're looking at the life cycle. So what lifetime astrology does is it applies our whole lifetime to our birth chart. So in our life cycle, we move once through our birth chart. With the moon cycle, we go through it 12 or 13 times a year. With the sun once a year, but in our lifetime chart, we just go around the chart once in our whole life. Okay. And that starts with conception through gestation to birth, and then through childhood into maturity, and then into what's called transcendence, and then death and rebirth. So you might,
Can we ask
yes,
questions
Helen.
do we ask questions as we go along, or do you want us to wait?
No, shall I ask as we go along?
Okay. I'm a bit confused. The whole life you go through everything, just you only go through it once. I suppose I'm
Hmm.
thinking of so what is a lifetime?
So, well,
What is what is what is a life cycle?
from
And how do
gestation to death.
and
So,
everybody goes through I'm thinking I'm a bit confused.
okay, so when we look at the charts, you'll see what I mean because I'm going to show you how
But
it breaks
everybody
down on the
dies at
chart.
different times, in different phases, in different places of the cycle.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
exactly. That's
mean?
the whole point there. All our charts are different, so we all get born at different places and we die at different ages and all the rest of it. So yeah, that's what we're going to look at. But these are the
Okay.
these are the stages of life that are common to everyone, regardless of when you do them, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
And there's no length of time, so you can be conceived. Well, you conceive and birth there is an absolute time there, but you could die at birth, or you could die in childhood, or you could die in maturity. Do you know that's where my confusion is when
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And sometimes
Okay.
you can see that in a chart.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
But we'll come on to this, but transcendence and death can be um, correspond to each other. All right. So I'll explain what I mean by that as we go along. All right. But good question. Thank you. So what we're doing here is based on this book called Lifetime Astrology. It's called A New Vision of Astrology, developed by a guy called A.T. Man. A.T. Man. He didn't like coffee. He was a tea man. And he came up with this in 1972, Gregorian. He's an architect and an astrologer in the US. And this book, so he developed it in 72 and he did loads of charts for 30 years. And then he released this book in 2002. So it's been well post-it noted and thumbed through, as you can see. But this is what we're really going to be looking at. So if you do want to get into this in more depth and really go to town, on your own chart. I would highly recommend you get this book. Um, and then you can read the whole thing and go through your own chart in detail. But what you'll notice on this on the cover is he's got these stages of gestation, childhood, and maturity here going around the zodiac. Okay, so we're going to look at how all that works, and we're going to be doing some exercises, of course, on our own charts. So here's a blank birth chart, okay, with the 12 houses, starting with the first house over at the 9 o'clock position. All right. So I'm just going to run you through how this lifetime astrology thing works. So what he says in this book is our conception point symbolically in our chart is at the cusp between the 8th house and the 9th house. And then the 8th house goes with the 8th sign Scorpio, and the 9th house goes with Sagittarius. So if you remember from the other workshops, that cusp is on the border between the house of transformation and the house of philosophy. Okay. So this made a lot of sense to me when I read it, because Scorpio in the zodiac is associated with death. So the death and rebirth conception point is at this point between the 8th and the 9th houses. Okay. And it's worked backwards from the ascendant. So if we carry on going round, if we put the birthmark in, the point we're born in our chart is at our ascendant. Okay. So that's the event. So these are events. Conception is an event and birth is an event. Okay. And then one of the other nominal events during our lives is when we go out of childhood into maturity, and that's at the age of 7, which is known as the age of reason. So legally, once you pass 7, you can kind of understand the difference between right and wrong and this kind of thing. This is the theory. So that's like the boundary between your early childhood and the rest of our adult lives. Okay. So those are the events. And then there's another event which we call transcendence. Now it's called the death in inverted commas. It doesn't mean you're going to die at that point, but it's when your maturity phase ends and you go into what we call transcendence. Okay. And on average, if you had an equal house birth chart with these 12 houses all being the same size, you would go from the 4th house into the 5th house at the age of reason at age 7. Okay. And you would reach transcendence, or your death and rebirth point, when you're 77. All right. So those are the 4 events, if you like, that divide your chart into these 3 parts. And this is how you can figure out lots of things about your life. All right. So the part between conception and birth, obviously, is gestation. Yeah. So as Helen was saying, it's got a kind of fairly fixed length, somewhere around 9 solar months or 10 lunar months. All right. And then the other section is childhood, between birth and the age of reason. And then the next section is maturity, from age 7 to 77 on average. Okay. And then we go into this transcendence phase. And when we go into transcendence, we actually go back over our gestation period. But we've gone around in a spiral. We've gone around the time cycle. And we've gone through gestation, through childhood, through maturity, and then we cross over gestation again. when we go into transcendence. And this is like second childhood. It's when we're older and we relate more to when we were a kid again. So I found that interesting reading the book as well. And I'll come on to more of that later. So those are the main phases of life, okay? Gestation, childhood, maturity, and transcendence. And what we find is our life, the time of our life is actually a logarithmic scale, right? So time isn't linear. Perceptually to us, it's actually logarithmic. So let me explain what I mean by that. So if you get pregnant, you find out you're pregnant after a month when you don't have your next period, okay? So after one moon, and one moon here is the average between a moon orbit and a moon phase cycle, all right? So it's about 28 and a bit days, 28 and a half days. All right, so after that, if you're pregnant, you figure out you're pregnant, all right? So that's one moon, takes to realize that. And then after 10 moons, about 284 days, gestation comes to an end and you give birth, okay? So that's 10 moons. So that's a 10-to-1 ratio of conception through gestation, all right? And then from birth to age of reason, that's actually 100 moons. So that's about 2,840 days. And that's 10 times as long as gestation. So you can see where this logarithmic, log scale is 10-to-1. So you go from 1 to 10 to 100. And then maturity from 7 to 77 is 1,000 moons, which is about 28,400 days. Okay. And he goes into all of this in this book, but I'm just summarizing it here for you. So you can see that each phase of your life is 10 times as long as the earlier phase. But this is really interesting because what it means is when you're in gestation, the whole time you're in gestation, that's pretty much like a third of your whole life perceptually. Okay. So it's one reason that explains why it's such a shock to be born, because your whole existence up to that point has been in this warm sack of fluid inside your mother without all your needs provided. And then you're sort of thrust out into the world and take your first breath and go into a completely different form of existence. And it's probably one reason why we don't remember any of that or that event, because it's fairly traumatic. But then when we go into childhood, we spend the first 7 years of our life on average. That's like perceptually a whole another third of our entire life. So this is why things that happen to us in childhood in these first 7 years have such an impact on the rest of our lives, because perceptually it's like a third of our whole life. Okay. So it's not just 7 years as a percentage of our total life. It's actually a third of it in logarithmic terms. Okay. And then, maturity is the whole of maturity is still only a third of our lifetime perceptually. Okay. Until we reach transcendence. So what you get is this log scale, and this is taken out of this book, but basically you've got your conception point over here, where it says 70 on this one. And these months from naught, where you're born here, this is -1, -2, -3, -4 months going back to when you were conceived. And then going forward, these are months 1, 2, 3 to 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. And then this is 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, and 5, and so on. So you can see how time speeds up and compresses as you get older. And I really notice this because, I'm 61 now and time is flying by, because you can see how compressed it is here. Whereas, I can remember being a kid and 6 weeks of school holidays when you were like, 8, 9, 10, they seemed to go on forever. It was a real shock when you had to go back to school at the end of the summer because it seemed like you'd been on holiday forever. Um, so I found this really explained a lot. So that's how we can see time speeding up as we get older. So if we look at these phases of our lives, in gestation, in these 10 moons, we grow our physical body. Okay. So our physical body is associated with the element earth during gestation. So once we're born, we've grown our physical body. And then from birth through childhood to the age of reason, we grow our emotional body. So we learn all about emotions through laughing and crying and interacting with our brothers and sisters and our mother and father and all that kind of stuff. So that's when we really develop our emotions through those experiences. And then as we go into maturity, we grow our mental body. So that's associated with the earth, the air element. So that's all about the mind. So that's developing our intellectual faculties as we go out into the world and get our first jobs and, maybe get our first partnerships and relationships and all that kind of thing. And then as we grow older out in the outside world, we grow in our mental body. And then when we get to the death and transcendence point, that's when we go into our phase of life where we really focus on our spiritual body. Okay. And that goes with the element fire. So what you can see is we rise through the hierarchy of elements. So we start off with the densest, lowest vibration, if you like, earth element with the physical body. And then if you remember from the other workshop, the water sits on the earth. Okay, so the water is lighter and more ethereal, and that's about the emotions. And then the element above water is air, because the air is above the sea, and we grow through that air mental body, and then we reach the fire. The fire, the plasma, and the sun in the sky, and the highest element, the highest vibration, the lowest density. So we're ascending from conception through the elements, the four elements, okay, until we go back to the fifth element of ether. Okay, so that gives you this lifetime astrology model, which is in this book, where you've got the 12 houses of your chart, and it's divided into these sections: gestation, childhood, and maturity. And on this chart, you've got the if you have an equal house chart, these are the ages that you would move from one house into the next house as you go through. So 7 months, 1 year, 9 months, 3 years, 10 months, 7 years, and so on. All right. So that's the way it works. And you can put the three dividing lines on there just to make it clearer. And then, of course, these are the 12 houses of our charts. So house 1, the self, and house 2, our values and our stuff. House 3, how we communicate. House 4, our roots and origins. House 5, creativity and children, all that stuff. 6, work and service and health and partners and relationships, significant relationships in the 7th house. Transformation, the 8th house. Philosophy and higher learning in the 9th. And our life, work and legacy in the 10th. And sharing what we've learned in networks in the 11th. And then the depth of our psyche and our spirituality in the 12th. So we can overlay that onto that model. So you can see that the houses of our charts correspond with the stages of the human cycle of growth. Because this is why the houses are associated with these things. Because we're born over here at the 9 o'clock position, and we're then in our first house, on typically till just the first 3 months of our lives. And that's all about the self, because when you're just born as a baby, it's all about me, 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 right? It's like feed me, love me, hug me, I need a poo, I need food, and all that kind of thing. And it's just me, me, me. And then after 3 months, up until, we go to the second house here when we're not, we're only like two and a bit. It's then about all our value, the stuff of value. So then we're playing with our rattle and our mobile and our toys and whatever. So the second house is all about our stuff, and that's why it's associated with our material wealth and all the rest of it. And then as we're coming around age 3, here going this way, let me go back up here. Look, you can see this is going up till 3 years, 10 months. So here's when we're learning to talk. Okay. So we're developing our communication skills as a little kid, talking to our family and stuff like that. And this is why the third house is associated with communications. And then the fourth house. So as we go from 3 years, 10 months up to age 7 on average, that's where we're really figuring out, that's all about home and family and the roots, because this is when we really start to figure out what this family thing is that we're in and who's in it and where we live and what our garden's like and who else is there with us and all of that stuff. And that's why the fourth house is associated with all of those things. And then we reach the end of childhood, perceptually. And then in the fifth house, this is from age 7 to 13. So that's when we go to school and we draw and we paint and learn to read and write and all those things and start being creative. And we're with other children. So this is why the fifth house is all about creative things and children and those kind of things. Okay, and then when we get from when we're 13 for about 10 years till we're 23 years, 5 months, typically, we're in the sixth house. And that's when we, start getting our first jobs and serving others. Often a lot of our first roles in society are service kind of things. And this is why the sixth house is associated with work and service and health issues, because if there's any health issues, they can often come out there as we go through puberty and into early adulthood. All right. And then from 23 and a half, roughly, till kind of 42 here, on average, if all your houses are the same size, then you're going to be in your seventh house. So that's the house of partners, significant others, because that's the age typically that you would do that in your life. Okay. You might settle down, you might get married, whatever. But you're really going to learn about yourself then through the eyes of a partner and learn about your experiences of interacting, romantically and emotionally and mentally and spiritually and physically with that other person. So that's all seventh house stuff. And then from 42 to sort of 77 on average, we'd be in our eighth house. So that's the house of transformation, because that's the stage of our lives where we do transform. And it's about a death and rebirth in terms of the death of the sort of persona that we may have created when we were younger and the image we put out into the world and how we wanted to be seen. We start just not giving a shit what other people think about us. And we just say, look, this is me and this is how I am. And if you don't like it, tough shit. And that's it, you know? So this is when we can transform and really let go of all those inhibitions and things we put on ourselves earlier in life. And I've definitely found that from passing through that house. Okay, and then when we get to 77 on average, we're then going back around this gestation part. But as I say, now in this transcendence phase, and this is when we're starting to prepare for, we're heading towards physical death, okay? And of course, it's only physical death. We know that energy can be created or destroyed in the universe. So our energy doesn't die, it just changes state. You know, it goes into physical state when we're conceived, and it goes back into ethereal state when we die. But the energy doesn't stop, you know, it doesn't die, it just carries on. So that's when we go into our ninth house. Okay. And then basically for the rest of our lives, we're really pinning down what our philosophy of life is, what our life work has been all about, and what legacy we're going to leave behind when we're gone, and how we're going to share that with the rest of the world. Are we going to write a book or publish some music or poems or whatever it is, you know, all of that? And then really, how are we going to pass over? How are we going to move from the physical world back to the spiritual world in the 12th house? Okay. So that's basically how we go from conception through gestation, through childhood, and through maturity, and then into transcendence. Okay, and as I say, those sections of our lives, those phases of our life perceptually are a third each of our whole life. Okay, so
Litmus,
yes,
litmus. So as you're going through this, that I just got this recurring thought, so I'm just gonna have it out. But if this is our cycles, this is everybody's cycles, and obviously the people do them at different times, I suppose. But I've got this niggle because I'm thinking of my own children, I suppose, who are entering into certain phases, and the way that the world has gone, people aren't the partners aspect, like seeing yourself reflected in someone else. People mating and relationships, and this is possibly how it was for the last thousands and thousands of years, but we don't live in that kind of world anymore. And I'm just wondering how that will how that's going to be on our species in this cycle. Does that make
okay.
sense?
Can you give me an example? You mean like what do you mean we don't live that way anymore?
Well, for example, the agendas at play at the moment, young people aren't getting into relationships. They don't know how to communicate with each other. They're just hooking up and having sex, and then marriage is down, and all of the traditional things that would have done that aren't occurring, even down to school isn't a place for creativity, it's a place for indoctrination, it's a place where you can now, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of wondering how this is going to play out for generations in the last maybe 10, 20, from the last 10, 20 years forward.
yeah,
Does
yeah. I
that
get
make
what you're
sense?
saying. Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what I
sure.
mean? So I'm a bit,
I agree. I mean, there are trends, you know, like there's a trend away from marriage, yeah. And
yeah.
there's been a trend towards just living together rather than getting married for a long time now, you know.
No, I know,
Those
but
things are
people are
still
not,
there, but they're, you know, yeah, the marriage thing is getting
it's not
smaller.
even it's not even the marriage and living together. Just people finding life partners right now, I believe is really, really difficult. Not even life partners to last any time. There's a phenomenal amount of single in the West. I don't know whether anybody else thinks this, or maybe I'm just, in the West, there's not. So I'm just seeing that some of these aspects are not happening in the way that they have for thousands of years with us, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah, it
suppose I'm
makes
wondering
sense.
how that
Yeah.
how that's going to impact upon on if this is, if this is not what, I don't like to talk in absolutes, but if this is what's supposed to happen and it's not going to happen, how is that? How are the heavens and the astrological charts and things going to change?
Yeah. Okay, well, there's a couple of things there.
Mm,
So, I mean, what this is basically, this is like looking at a typical archetypal division of a chart based on all the houses being the same size and everything, right? Which generally they're not. And what we're going to do shortly is look at our own charts and see how these things change. So there's a aspect to this where these things happen at different ages for different people based on the size of their houses in their chart, okay? Which we're going to look
okay.
at. Yeah, and also there are trends away from some things and towards other things. We do have to be careful of self-reference criteria, because we can tend to assume the world is going a certain way based on the people around us and the experiences we have in our own lives. But that doesn't mean to say that's, generic for the whole world. It's a bit like if you go on social media, you would get a perception of what's going on in the world, yeah. But if you didn't know social media existed and you just went out and walked around and met people, you'd have a completely different perception of what the world's really like, yeah. And whether you live in a city surrounded by loads of people or whether you live in nature in the country, you'd have a completely different perception of life then. So I get what you're saying, but what this is a kind of generic model that's saying that, and it doesn't mean that everybody, people in Africa don't go to school in a building in a town. In certain parts of Africa, they still all communally go into a hut in the village or something like that. So creativity doesn't have to be in school, but I'm just saying that that's the age typically it would start to develop. From age 7 to 13, you'd get more into your creativity aspect of your life. So yeah, it's not hard and fast, but it's to give you a flavor of why the houses have the meanings that they do is because that's the cycle we go through as we grow. Generically. All right. So I hope that answers some of your point, but if we move on and look at our own charts, hopefully that'll come and become a bit clearer. All right. So that's the cycle of growth. And now if we consider planets, so where we've got planets in our charts, so if you look at your own charts and see where the planets are, if you've got planets in the gestation third of your chart, so in your ninth, 10th, 11th, or 12th houses, those, if you remember from the other workshops, we had some key words for each planet, yeah? So like the sun is about your motivation, and the moon is about your emotions, Mercury is about your intellect, Venus is about how you love, and Mars is about your drive, and Jupiter is about expansion, and Saturn's about contraction and restriction and setting boundaries. Uranus is about individuality and freedom. And Neptune is about imagination, and Pluto's about power. So if you think of those energies, if they're in your gestation third of your chart, those are core influences deep in your physical body. And because they're in this part that you go around in transcendence, they also affect you spiritually in how you feel and think spiritually. All right. So we're going to do an exercise in a minute where we look at our own charts and we see what planets we've got in gestation. All right. But then if you've got planets in childhood, so in the first, second, third, and fourth houses of your chart, those energies are going to influence you deep in your emotional body, because that's where you develop your emotional body during those ages of life. Okay. So if you've got planets there, that's going to be more of an emotional impact on you. And then if you've got planets in the maturity phase in the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth houses, those energies of those planets, they're going to influence your mental body. So how you think and communicate and your intellect and all those kind of things. your air body. All right. And then if we think of planets having aspects, so, planets in squares, opposition, conjunctions, whatever to each other, aspects between planets in our charts link those times of our lives together as well. Okay. So if you've got a planet in your first house in opposition to a planet in your seventh house, that's going to link events in the first 3 months of your life to the time between you when you're 23 and 42. And that's really amazing. And I'll give you some examples from my own chart of what I found from doing this. All right. So that's about the planets. And then what I did personally, I applied this cycle of growth to my own birth chart. Okay. So I drew this logarithmic scale out with all the divisions that we saw. And then I applied that to my own chart, and drawing it was really good, actually, just to get you really get used to your chart then. So I put all the degrees of each house and everything on it. And I did all that and colored it in, like with colored pencils and stuff, which was kind of fun. And then I got a bit carried away and I added all this to it. But I'm not going to go through that, but just to show you, how you can really get stuck into it if you want to. But the main thing I want to show you is, so for me, okay, so that this scale is the same for everyone, this log scale of time. But for me, look, these are my houses. So I haven't got equal houses. This is my first house. This is my second one here. This is my third and fourth. And so if you've got equal houses on average, your childhood perceptually is going to end at age 7 and you're going to go into maturity. But for me, the end of my fourth house and the start of my fifth house is here, look, when I'm just past 5 years old. So for me, my childhood ended a bit early at 5. Okay. So what I can tell you about that is when I was 5 years old, my family moved from a place called Bridgend in Wales to Barry. And everyone I'd known up to that point, all my friends and everything, and the house and the places I used to play, we had to leave all that behind. And we went to a different house in a new town. I had to start a new school where nobody knew me, and I got picked on as being the new kid and all that sort of stuff. So it did really feel like my childhood had ended. So when I came across this book and looked at all that, I found that really interesting. So again, you can look at your own chart and see where your childhood ended. And we're going to do that as an exercise, right? So what I did with all this, rather than everyone having to draw this out and do all this for themselves, me and my friend Prajna, we built a little app. So we built a lifetime astrology app, which will basically give you a breakdown of all the key events, all the houses and planets of your chart, and at what age those come into being, like which ages of your life they all act the strongest. So it's called the LTA sheet, a lifetime astrology sheet, and it overlays your lifetime onto your chart, like the ones you've seen that I've sent you with the orange numbers around the edge. And it'll give you a full breakdown. So that's something I can offer you if you're interested. I can give you more detail on your own charts. Okay. And I've been through this with all right, Charlie, yeah, no worries. I've been through this with Kanobo, but I don't think we actually got as far as the next bit. So this is the type of thing it does. Look, it puts that scale that we looked at. So it puts this scale, time scale, onto your birth chart. It just overlays it so that you can see at what age you are when you're in each house and what sign you're in and all that, right? And what does that mean, of course? And this book tells you what it means, which is interesting. So, but the other thing the app does, as well as doing this overlay, it produces this worksheet, and it shows you your physical body in gestation in the green, and then your childhood body with water there, your emotional body in blue, and your air body in yellow, and when you go into transcendence. So, and it shows you at what UCC date and which Gregorian date all of those events occur, and which sign they're in, and what degree, and how far from your ascendant they are, and therefore what age you are. So it'll tell you at what age you move houses and which way you've got planets and all the rest of it. So if you want to get into it, that's something the app does, in a couple of seconds. And we can do that for your charts if you want to. All right, so that's enough explanation, which is probably an hour or so. So thanks for staying with me through that. And now it's time to get stuck in and do some exercises. All right. And we can have a chat about it. So the first exercise is on your life phases, these phases of your life. So on your own birth chart, divide your life into gestation, childhood, maturity, and transcendence. All right. Yeah, that one, yeah. So have a look. Basically, you're looking at where's your ascendant, and that's going to be your birth point, where my blue line is. But before that, your conception point, the green line, that's going to be on the cusp between your 8th and your 9th house. So find your 8th and 9th house cusp. And if you've got it printed out, you can draw on it. You can put a line across there like I have here. And then you can clearly see which bit's gestation. And then your first 4 houses are going to be your childhood. And then your 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th houses are going to be maturity. And then 9, 10, 11, and 12 is going to be transcendence going over gestation. All right. So if you can do that first and let me know when you've figured it out. And then we'll go on to the next bit. You all right with that, guys? I couldn't do yours, Sue, because I don't know your time of birth. And it depends on your time of birth. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, obviously all of this depends on you knowing the time of your birth, because if you don't know that, you can't figure out your house orientations, and then you can't do lifetime astrology. So for anyone watching, I should have said that at the start. Well, I just wasted an hour of my life listening to this. All right. So everyone done that? No? You need some help, Helen?
I'm kind of just looking at it and I'm trying to that one
So
goes
if
straight
you got your
across.
chart, yeah? So if you draw a line from the center across to the 9 o'clock position,
Yeah, I got a
there's a
line
line
there.
there already, but you can just
Yeah,
highlight it.
I got
And
that.
that's your birth point, okay?
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Oh,
And then if you go around your chart through your first house and your second house, and on your chart, those have got Roman numerals on them, all right? So you've got a Roman numeral 2 on the cusp of your first and second houses, which would be, this kind of point. And then
3.
you'll have a Roman numeral 3 at the start of your third house, and then a 1V for your fourth house. So you're looking for the V, the fifth, the Roman numeral 5, and that's the cusp of your fifth house. So then you can draw another line from the center of your chart through between your fourth and your fifth house, and that's the end of your childhood. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe I'll just show you what I did on mine. Um, I didn't put it in for that one, did I? Yeah, I think we're going to come on to that anyway. So yeah, let me skip forward. Yeah. So I'm looking at planets. Yeah. All right. So, but that's what we're trying to do. We're dividing it into thirds. Okay. So did you get your fifth house cusp? Okay. And then the next one you're looking for is the eighth. So that'll be what, V111. Sorry, V111. That's going to be the start of your eighth house, and then you want an X1, an XI or whatever for number nine, and you want to draw a line between the eighth and the ninth houses. All right. That should divide your chart into three sections based on your houses. So then they won't be exactly thirds. They'll be whatever the size of your houses make them. Yeah. You all right with that?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully, if you've all done that now, you can see how your charts break down into those sections of your life. All right. And now we're going to do a little bit of a fun exercise. It's looking at our roots. All right. So this is to find out which of your parents was initiated your conception. All right. So if you start over here at your conception point between your eighth and your ninth houses. All right, and then move clockwise this way around your chart until you come to the sun or the moon in your chart going this way. But start from this point, all right? Go this way. And the sun in your chart represents your father, and the moon represents your mother. So the question is, which of your parents initiated your conception? And it's basically the first of those that you come to, wherever they are. All right. So I'm going to show you on mine. So this is my chart. All right. So I start over here and I go this way and I go all the way around here. And the first one I come to is my sun. Sorry, that's my sun, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to change that while I'll do it live. That's my father. So my father initiated my conception. All right, but my mother's right there next to him. So that tells me my parents were very close during this period. All right, but it was my father who initiated my creation, if you like. All right, so I was created initially with the masculine sun energy. And my ascendant is Leo, and it's ruled by the sun. By coincidence. All right, so if you can look on your charts and see who it was for you and whether that makes sense for you. And if you want to share, we can go round if you want to share. I mean, I've shared mine, so I can't see why anyone else wouldn't want to share.
Um, I think if I've read it right, my dad initiated my conception,
Uh-huh.
and my mum, they were not very close. No wonder they got divorced.
Right. So where's your moon in relation to your sun?
Okay, if that's you can't really see.
I've got your chart actually, Helen, so I can have a look, but
All right,
I haven't got it to hand right now because I'm on the
my
screen share. But
son is in, I think it's, what's that called, that sign? I think that's Cancer, and my mum is in Aries.
okay, so they're about 90 degrees apart.
They're a distance apart, yeah.
Yeah. So they're actually in a square, which probably means there was some challenging, you know, tension or argumentative energy between them at the time.
That never
Um,
stopped.
right. So there was some distance between them, and that maybe carried on, as you say, through your life, you know. So that it sounds as if you that makes sense to you by what you're
Very
saying.
much so,
Okay, right.
considering what my mom said about how I was conceived, etc. But she
Okay.
wasn't,
All
you know.
right.
Oh,
All right.
apparently I'm a rape conception. So,
Ah, okay. So definitely the father was dominating. Yeah.
well, she went and had more children and married him and everything else. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, you never know, do you?
No, I don't.
Charlie, do you want to
Even though I
share?
shouldn't have been told that, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, happy to. So the first thing that I come to as I move around clockwise is the moon. So my mum
Okay.
initiated conception, and that the sun is almost 180 degrees opposite.
Okay. So you can't get much further apart then. So that would suggest there was some kind of distance between them, either physically or emotionally or mentally or something, you know.
Yeah,
And you
probably
can often
emotionally.
see what kind of distance it was based on what signs and houses they're in, you know.
So, okay, so the sun is in Sagittarius
Yeah.
in my 12th house,
Hmm.
dad, and my mum is in, oh, I don't know all the symbols for the signs yet.
Well, it's going to
Um,
be in Gemini or something if it's
yes,
opposite.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that? What's the one with the cross in the middle? Circle with a cross in the middle. What's that?
Uh, that's that's probably a part of fortune.
Yeah, so
But
it's near there, but no other
okay.
planets or anything
But
in.
your moon's in Gemini, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. And your sun's in Sagittarius.
yeah.
So that could suggest some kind of long distance travel between them around the time that you were
Well,
conceived.
well, yes, my mum had moved to Paris, you see, but she'd been there for 7 years. But after I was conceived, she decided to come back to England, and my dad didn't want to come, but
Ah, okay.
was forced to, and made us know that through my whole childhood.
Ah, okay. So that's
Yeah,
interesting, right? So there was an opposition there.
for sure.
One wanted one thing and the other wanted the other thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting, you know, Sagittarius is about long distance travel and basically travel abroad, as you know, right? Overseas. And Gemini is about short distance travel closer to home. So your mother came back to travel closer to home and your dad wanted to stay in France, right?
Well, my dad is he's French, so
He's
that was
French,
the
right?
plan.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that's a good example. I think
mm,
both of your examples so far go along with what this book is saying, you know, that you can
mm.
figure this stuff out from your birth chart
Yeah.
using this stuff. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And I'm glad. I mean, maybe someone will have a contradictory one with it that doesn't seem to stack up, but let's see. Anna, do you want to share?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it looks like my moon was the first one, so I guess it was my mother that initiated it. And
Yeah,
yeah, my son is almost completely opposite as well, which
right.
kind of not surprising. My parents were divorced or separated by the time I was two, so
Oh wow. So that's another good example then,
yeah, yeah, it kind of fits.
right?
Uh,
Good. And the signs?
Oh, the moon's in Pisces and the sun's in
Hmm.
Libra.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
don't follow what that means in this aspect.
Well, yeah, I mean, Pisces obviously opposite, that's Virgo, but Libra's pretty close to opposite. Yeah, it's quite a big distance between them. Um,
Because the sun's fairly close to the Virgo. It's right. It's at like 0 degrees Virgo, so I'm right on that
Yeah,
cusp.
because your birthday's like 24th of September, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in that first degree of Virgo by like what is it?
Libra, right?
Libra. Sorry, Libra. Get confused.
Yes, because
Yeah.
your sun is just a day or so after the equinox, right? So yeah, it's right very early in Libra. So yeah, it's almost opposite something in Pisces. So that could be an intellectual difference with it being in an air sign. There could be something about like justice or fairness or equality. They could have had an argument about some kind of inequality or something like that. With the,
Yeah, yeah. I do know what was a big part of the breakdown in the marriage was around I guess my mother wanted more for her life. She wanted to get an education and things like that. Like she'd left school at 15 because to go work to, support in the family. And my father was like, well, wasn't supportive of her wanting to create more for her life than just sort of staying in that
yeah, okay.
realm. Uneducated, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, but Pisces, as you know, is a very deep sign. So it's not going to be happy with shallow things, superficial
Yeah.
things. It wants some depth and some meaning to life.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could. So a difference of opinion. So it's interesting again that though your sun and your moon are pretty much opposite each other, and your parents broke up when you were two or whatever, or before you were two. So,
Yeah.
that's all so far. There's some examples kind of endorsing what this says. Like,
Mm.
now I can only see you three, but is Kath still there?
Oh, she had to go. She put a message in the chat.
Ah, okay. And what about Abram and Mara? Are they there? I
I'm
can't see
here.
them.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Yep.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can't see you, but I can hear you. So,
Oh,
how are
sorry.
you doing so far? Is it making sense?
Good. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so I have a fairly similar to the last couple gals where my sun and moon are nearly opposite. My mother would be the conceiver of the madness, and uh, my moon is in Capricorn and my sun is in Gemini. My parents
Okay.
are divorced, but it took 50 years for that to happen. A
Okay.
little long there. My dad is a Sagittarius and my mother is a Gemini. So they were already opposite.
Opposite. Yeah. Okay.
Uh, uh, yeah.
And have they ever spoke to you about the sort of any distance between them around the time of your conception and your birth?
No, but my aunt, before she passed away, let me know that I was the product of makeup sex.
Ah, okay.
My father was the transgressor of such things,
I
apparently. So
see.
that is,
Okay. So there was obviously, before you were conceived, some big fallout or distance between them then.
yes.
Yeah, which is then supported by where they are in your chart.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And what about Abram?
I can tell you that he's running around getting cords together. We are leaving tomorrow for a wedding. And
Okay.
so his mother is also the moon, the conceiver, and
Yeah.
his sun is in Aries. His moon is in Capricorn. So going around, he is also the mother conceiver.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so we got what, about 3 or 4 signs between them two then?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Aries Capricorn, that's a square pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
two
They're not
cardinal
together.
signs.
Not together anymore.
Right.
Didn't
Okay.
last very long.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. So it seems so far that all the examples seem to bear out what the theory is saying anyway. Yeah. So is there anyone else, or I think that's everyone now, isn't it? If Cass had to go. yeah, so thanks for sharing, guys.
Quick
I'm just
question
gonna,
on that.
yes,
So say your moon was just I don't know, like not far from that, what do you call that line? The death rebirth line.
yeah,
So say you hit the moon and then you have to go like 200 or like 300 degrees to get around to the sun. Does that mean they're
hmm.
still together even though they're you had to go through it? Like, does it matter the direction of how far away from each other or close together they are? Like,
Yeah,
is
because
that
basically then you'd be in two completely different phases of life symbolically in your chart, right? So
yeah.
they could
So
they
even
could
though,
be close, they could be close together in your chart, but separated by, as you say, almost a full circle.
yeah. So
Um,
does that would that represent a separation or would that actually still represent a closeness because they're still kind of close together?
it could act kind of paradoxically be a bit of both. So they could be very close in some way, depending on the sign that's in and the house. But they could be very uh, have a lot of distance between them in another way.
Okay.
Okay, but I haven't really come across an example of that yet. So that's a really good question again, Anna. And that's something we can probably look at a bit more. I haven't come across an example like that yet, but I think I'll look out for it now because that's
Yeah.
a really good question, and I hadn't thought of that really, to be honest. So from reading the book, but there might be something in the book about it. But it is quite a few years ago I read the book now, so um, I'll do a bit more. I'm going to make a note of that one. That's a good one. I'm gonna make a note and see if I can find something in the book about it. Okay,
Okay.
Sun, Moon. What do you think?
Um, I feel like that would sort of still indicate somewhat of a closeness more than a separation, but I'm just going on feeling because I still feel like I don't really know anything about astrology. So I don't know.
Yeah, but a lot of it is about feelings and intuitions and that. So,
Yeah.
that's cool. Good question. We'll have a look at that. Um, all right. Anyone else, or should we move on to the next bit? Okay. So, so the next exercise is looking at your planets. All right. So my guest in the room here has been doing that already, apparently. But she's a smart ass, so she's all Miss Clever Clogs over there. She's always like that. But she takes after me, see, in the family, I think. Right. So what we're going to do with this, looking at our planets. So the question is, which phases of your life are your planets in? All right. So therefore, which body are they influencing most? So have a look at your chart and see where your planets are. Where are they in gestation? Are they in childhood? Are they in maturity? Where are they? I'm going to show you my chart again as an example. All right. So if we look at my chart, so here's my gestation and transcendence, third of my chart. So you can see I've got Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, the moon, and the sun, and my north node. All right. So sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, north node, and Jupiter in my gestation phase. And so they're deep in my physical body, but they also influence my spirituality. All right. So if if I have transits or aspects, going on with those planets, as we go through life and through the cycles, the energies in my birth chart are in my physical body. So I'm gonna feel that really deep in the core of my being. Yeah. But then I've got my Mars, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So here's Here's Uranus and Mars and Pluto, and I got Neptune down here. And I can tell you, I've also got Lilith. It's not shown on this chart, but my Lilith is down here as well. So they're all in my childhood phase. So they influence my emotional state. Okay. So things going on with those planets tend to affect me emotionally more so than in other ways. All right. But then over here in maturity, I've got my Saturn here and then Chiron here. So they're in this phase, and that's influencing my mental body. So these things influence the way I think and my intellectual, my thought processes and stuff. And it's interesting for me, I've got Chiron here right on my death and rebirth conception point. And of course, Chiron is the wounded healer. So that suggests some kind of original wound around the time of conception, okay, in Pisces. Now and of course that's affecting then my physical body, okay? So when my mother was pregnant with me, she had a condition called sarcoidosis. And when I was born, she didn't have it anymore. But when I got to this age here in my chart, when I went into transcendence at 50, I found out I've got sarcoidosis. All right, so I inherited that from my mother, and it came into my life right at the point of my death and rebirth. And it says in this book, when you reach transcendence, you go back around the gestation phase. It says this is the time of your life when you will relate to things that happened to your mother during pregnancy, okay? And you will get things from that perspective. And I found that incredible that I've actually got the same physical condition that my mother had, which my birth seemed to take away from her, and of course I've inherited it. So that kind of blew me away when I figured that out. But that's one example. But you can look at all your planets, and I mean, with the book, if we do a individual reading, we go through all the planets and all the houses and all the signs and everything, and do a sort of detailed breakdown. But obviously, we haven't got time to do that for everyone tonight, so we're just doing some examples. All right. So is everyone all right with where their planets are?
How many planets some are looking for?
How many?
Yeah.
Just all the ones, any symbols you got in this circle of your chart. So in the bit around.
So they don't all have to be there.
Well, they'll all be there. I mean, if you've got the Cafe Astrology chart, so it won't have Chiron. It won't have this one, the K thing with the right circle on the bottom like a key.
Okay.
That it won't show that in your Cafe Astrology one, but it will show Lilith, which is like a dark moon with a little cross at the bottom of it. But you can see on your chart there, Helen, you've got all the symbols in the bottom right corner in a table.
Yeah.
With the planets, so you can see which symbols are which. So then you can see, just by seeing which third of your chart your planets are in, you can see which way they're going to affect you more predominantly. All right.
Okay.
So you can kind of make a list of them, and then if you want to read into that, yeah, we can go through the book and then see what that means for you. All right.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a belter.
No, I was just going to say, I just noticed, in the gestation area of my chart, the only thing that's there pretty much is Chiron, and then I guess the MC line. But other than that, the only thing there is Chiron. So there's pretty empty of planetary influences in my gestation.
Okay.
Yeah,
so that would suggest you don't have deep-rooted sort of physical energies associated with those planets then. But you've got more planets, say, in childhood or maturity.
Yeah, there was slightly more in childhood than maturity, but not a huge difference.
Okay, well, if you look at those planets, if you think of the key words we talked about in the other workshops about the energies associated with those planets, if they're in your childhood, they're going to affect you more emotionally. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then you can look at the aspects between them as well in terms of linking times of your life. But we're going to come on to that. And then, yeah, so you've got, and then the rest of your planets are in maturity, right?
Yeah.
So those are more intellectual energies.
Yeah. That makes
Okay.
sense. Okay. I'm following.
Cool. Yes, Charlie.
So mine's the opposite of Anna. It's all
Okay.
my bloody planets.
Well,
Most of
you're on the opposite side of the world from her, aren't you?
yeah,
So.
yeah. All I've got like 5 planets. 5 planets, and my son in the gestation transcendence. I have
All right. So similar to
only
me then,
one in
yeah.
childhood.
One in childhood.
It's literally only just there. It was almost in the transcendence, but it's like a millimeter under the
So it's
ascending.
right on your ascendant.
Yeah,
Okay. Which planet?
Mars.
Okay. Well, that's going to give you a lot of drive. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Especially, and a lot of emotional drive
Hmm.
because it's just in your emotional body, but it's very close to your ascendant. So it's also going to give you a lot of like, how am I seen in the world? What's
Mm,
my personal identity? A lot of
yeah.
drive behind that. Okay.
Yeah, and then I got nothing in childhood. No
All
planets
right.
apart from that one that's right near the ascendant point.
Right.
And then 2 in maturity plus Lilith.
Okay.
That's
So the
it.
2 in maturity, they're going to be more mental. All right. Mental,
Yeah.
crazy.
Jupiter and Saturn.
Mm. Okay. So you got expansion and contraction in maturity.
Yeah, contradiction.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Everyone all right with that one? So you can see where all your planets are, which phase of your life. Now we're going to look at the aspects between your planets. All right. So this is where what we're asking here is which times of your life are linked by your planets. All right. So you can look at which, like we talked earlier about, I think it was Helen's sun and moon being in a square to each other. So you can look at what times of the life in your chart those are happening, and those 2 times of your life are linked by that square. But let me give you an example again in my chart. So if you look at my chart here, I've got Uranus over here in my second house, and this red line going across here is an opposition to my Saturn in my 7th house over there. Now, so that's linking. You can see here, where my Saturn is, I was age 33. All right. And my Uranus is deep in my emotional body at around like 5 months old. Okay. Now, what that means is for me, individual, like personal freedom and freedom of expression within groups and non-conformity and all those things are really emotionally important to me. And if someone tries to restrict those things, I get very emotional. Right? Now, interestingly, I've got Saturn over here in opposition to that. Okay, so that's restricting my freedom and stuff. Okay. Now, interestingly, when I was this age here, 33, I had a massive bust up with my wife, which ultimately led to our divorce. Okay. But that's because at this point, I was really starting to express who I really was and being honest about how important my personal freedom and all that was to me. And once I passed this point where Saturn was in opposition, my life completely changed. I changed my name. I quit my job. I got divorced. I bought a boat and a camper van and went traveling, after that. But all my life from here, all the way around to here, this Saturn was opposing my freedom. And I was playing the game, I was in the corporate world, and I went to school and all of that and college and got a job in the corporate world and did pretty well, but it wasn't really me. I was like playing a role. But as soon as I passed this restricted Saturn opposition here, it was like I was let loose, and I became Litmus a Freeman. Like, so that was really interesting to me. Again, looking at this theory and looking at how it applies to my chart. So that's just one example. But if you look in your charts, I could pick this one here with Mercury in gestation linked across here to Pluto, when I was young. And that's about the intensity of my intellect opposing my ability, challenging my ability to communicate effectively. All right. So sometimes I can just go into way too much detail and present too much information, as you guys know, right? And then the message isn't always clear, right? So that's something I have to work on, and be conscious of, because that's deep in my physical and emotional bodies, all right? Anyway, we could go on, but hopefully you can see some examples in your own chart where you've got planets in an aspect, and there may have been an event or something in your life at one of those points that's linking those two times of your life together. But that's a little bit more intricate, a bit more involved than the exercises we've done so far. But again, if anyone's interested and want to talk offline about any of this and do a more in-depth reading, we can do it. All right. So has anyone got anything they've noticed with that, or Charlie?
I'm just finding it really hard because a lot of the lines in mine are in that gestation or transcendent period, and they're linked to things that haven't come yet.
Okay.
It's coming later.
Okay. All right.
The only thing I have is Mercury in opposition with my moon.
Okay.
And Mercury's in like the gestation period, and my moon it was when I was 15.
Okay. So did anything happen with your mother when you were 15?
Not that I can think of.
Did she challenge you intellectually in any way, or
No,
no?
no.
Okay.
No, can't
That's
think of anything
okay.
on
I
that.
mean, you may not think of anything right now,
Yeah.
but what I found when I was doing this, I
Mm.
didn't initially see everything, but the more I kind of went away and pondered on it, and actually, because a lot of these things happen earlier in life, and like anything in gestation, we weren't even there, so we have to ask someone who was around, right? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
all mentioned, you got stories where your auntie or someone's told you something that happened, before you were born or whatever. So it can be tricky to find out, but it is really interesting just asking those questions, because I found out a lot about my early life and the time, what was going on in my life before I was born, just by studying this. So I found that really interesting. And it's about getting to know yourself better and where you come from and what makes you who you are and all that kind of stuff.
What I don't mind sharing is where my
Yeah.
maturity line is.
Right.
And it's a lot older than 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on like around like age 11, 12.
Okay.
And that's when I started menstruating.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There you go. Just thought I'd
Well,
put that one in.
well, that's good. That's a good example. You heard it here first. Right. So Yeah, go on. Someone want to say something?
I was going to say something.
Yeah, go on.
So I was looking at, like, I was talking about that divorce thing as well. Like around I guess it looks like around 18 months which is where the what is that? Saturn? No, Jupiter is. And then
Right.
that's directly opposite the moon. It's got a line there. What is that when they're opposite?
Opposition, yeah. So it's yeah, they're opposing, the energies are opposing each other.
Yeah, so
So
that was
you
like the moon, which I guess you kind of call the mother, and then that's around the time the separation of official separation of the marriage happened.
okay, interesting. But you say it's in opposition to Jupiter, yeah?
Yeah, moon and Jupiter.
All right. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius in the ninth house.
Yeah.
So that's about expansion of the intellect. It's also about higher learning and education. And as a character in your life, that can represent like a university lecturer or a professor or a teacher or someone who expands your knowledge or your personal development in some way. So there could have been something going on between someone like that and your mother at that time, or
Yeah.
at the time where you. So what age is your moon at? You say?
Uh, Pisces?
Yeah, and what age is it in your chart?
Oh, what age is the moon in my chart? It's like almost 77. I guess it's like maybe 70. I don't know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So not it hasn't happened yet then.
no, it's close
But
to 70.
so Jupiter's opposite over in early childhood, right?
Yeah.
So what age is that?
That looks like about maybe 18 months. I'm guessing from,
18
looking at
months. All right. Yeah. Sorry, you did say, yeah. So
but then I do
you might want to ask your mum if anything happened around that time with that kind of person when you were 18
mm,
months old.
okay.
All right. And she'll
Yeah.
say, "How did you know about that?" And you'll
Yeah,
go,
but
"It's
then
all voodoo, man."
oh,
Yeah.
voodoo, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for that. So now we're going to do this. Oh, sorry. Have Abram and Mara got anything to say on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I noticed two correlations that I could confirm. Most of mine were at age 1 with my son, Mars and Venus all squaring Pluto and Uranus. And at age 1, my aunt also told me that I was my dad's child, and my mother had like taken my sister as her own because of the whole, infidelity thing. And my first birthday, my dad's job was to buy presents for me, and my mother would buy presents for my sister. He
Oh,
bought
okay.
me
Interesting.
too many presents. And so she took back control of the birthdays at my first birthday. I no
Oh,
longer
wow.
was going to get presents from my dad. So that was interesting. And then I noticed the only thing that kind of was mostly left for aspects going into my maturity is that when my Chiron hit, I hit menopause. So Chiron, and
Okay.
I had some health issues that all sort of exploded all at once. And so that's really,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that would be interesting to look up more of that in this book, because this goes into all the planets and the houses and the signs and what they all mean at various different points in your chart. So yeah, maybe we can talk about that again offline and I can shed a bit more light on it for you. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's do the next exercise. We're getting near the end now, all right? Thanks for staying with me so long. So what we like, not far short, a couple of hours now, right? I think I put 2 hours down for this session, so we're not far off. So the next one is just on the life phases. So like Charlie just shared the example, at what age did your childhood end in inverted commas and in which sign? Okay, so she said hers was rather than 7 on average, it was more like 11 or 12. So have a look at your chart and where you put your lines between your 4th and your 5th house and your 8th and your 9th house. And you can see at what age did your childhood end? All right, and then see which sign that's in. And at what age will you or did you enter transcendence? I think for most of you, that's going to be a when will you? And for me and maybe Helen, it's going to be a when did we? It's certainly a when did we for me anyway. And what sign was that in? All right. And of course, your birth point is your ascendant. So you all know what your ascendant sign is. Mine's in Leo. And again, this book goes into detail about what your first house, your birth point in Leo means and all the signs and these other points as well. But let me just give you an example in my chat again. So as I said earlier, my childhood ended age 5 when we moved to Barry from Bridgend, and I had to move school and everything. And that was in Scorpio. So for me, that was a deeply emotional experience, okay? And it, as I said earlier, it did feel like the end of my childhood, and like I had to grow up and figure out all these new people in the new place and all of that. And I also lost my 2 front teeth. My sister who's here with me will remember the day we moved into our new old house in Barry, we went to the nearest swings and we were on the swings and I had a big slab of toffee and I bit into it and my 2 front teeth came out in the toffee and I was left with this big gap and I had to go to my new school with this big gap in my mouth. So that didn't go down well and I had a lot of piss taken out of me and yeah, so that's another kind of traumatic experience that felt like the end of something, And that's so interestingly, that's all in Scorpio for me. And I entered transcendence at age 50. You can see here, look, right, my cusp of my 8th and 9th house here, my conception and death and rebirth point is right on 50. I was actually 50 in 1 month. So, I was, and that's in Pisces, and I was also obviously then conceived in Pisces, which gives me very, I'm interested in really deep philosophical and spiritual sort of questions, about existence and what it's all about and all that kind of thing, which is very Piscean. But, at that age, that's when I'd quit my job at 40 and done a deal when I quit to get a smaller pension, but a pension at 50, not knowing any of this, of course. So at 50, it meant I got a bit of money coming in and then I didn't have to worry about doing things I didn't want to do to earn money. And I could have more time then to focus on, what's it all about, Alfie kind of stuff. And that's when I really did start getting more into spirituality, even though I've always had an interest in that. I think I certainly became more spiritual then, and that's carried on ever since. Okay, so that again, that made a lot of sense for me. And with my birth point being in Leo, which is about creativity, I wrote hundreds of songs and I like writing poems and Leo performing, and I love my kids. It's about children and creativity and all of that stuff. So all of that made sense to me. So I don't know if you've got any comments, if you want to share, like Charlie did, where your childhood ended and whether that makes sense to you and whether anything happened. at that point, at that age for you that you can remember, or anything like that? And if I guess you haven't reached your transcendent point, but if you see where that's going to be and what sign it's in, you might find that interesting as well. So anyone want to share anything on that one?
Sorry, can I just ask a question again? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've got lost.
Okay.
I'm trying to see how I identify where my transcendent is, and I don't know how to.
Okay. So
I
it's
need to go
it's
back.
that's okay. It's between your eighth and your ninth house, so it'll be over on in the top right corner somewhere. So if you look for the Roman numeral X1 for, or is it 1X? What's 9? Is it
I've done
1X or
this
X1?
already. Okay, yeah, sorry. It's all right.
That's all right.
I've got it
You got
again.
it? So what age is
Yeah.
that at, Helen, for you?
X1 is just before I'm 50, 40 something.
It's 1x because it's 1 before 10.
Yeah, that's it. 1X. Yeah, should be 1X. But that's in your late 40s, yeah?
uh that's the line. Yeah,
Okay, so
late
about the
40s.
same as me then, coming up to 50 kind of age, yeah?
Yeah, late 40s. Yeah, I've got it
So what
now.
that's saying is you entered your transcendent, more spiritual phase where you're really developing your fire body at that age, and you're still in that phase now, okay?
And that's where my node is.
That's where your north node is as well, is it?
My north node.
Your north
No,
node looks like a pair of headphones.
yeah, no, it's just after that. My north node is after it.
Okay,
Okay.
so your north node's in your ninth house then.
And it is in Capricorn.
Okay.
There's no planets.
Mm-hmm. Well, your north node, it's about your soul purpose, your soul mission. So
Okay.
that's about practicality, making the best of the things you find around you.
Okay.
But a Capricorn's also associated with uh, like government institutions, top-down structures, hierarchical structures, and control, and things like that. So it's lessons to learn about those kind of issues. But that's in your ninth house of philosophy and higher learning. So you can learn about yourself and your philosophy through those kind of experiences with those kind of institutions, for example.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the main point is, does it feel right to you that you entered this more spiritual phase of your life at late 40s, 50 kind of time? Because on average, that's quite early, like me, sorry, not on average, but compared to the average, the average would be based on equal houses would be 77, and yours is like 30 years before that, yeah. But
All
I would
right.
say you do seem to be a deeply spiritual kind of person, Helen, from what I know of you. So
I
it's
do
no surprise
try.
to me that yeah, well, it's no surprise to me that you enter that phase at a younger age.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else want to share anything on that one?
Yeah, I will.
Go on in, Charlie.
So I don't necessarily feel like this is correct,
All right. That's all right.
but so my transcendent point, I'm going to be about 120,
Okay.
Long
Yeah.
life.
So
right?
you
So I
got,
better last that long.
yeah, well, of course,
So
once you get into that higher reaches of your chat, the age thing kind of goes out the window,
yeah.
which is why it kind of stops at 100. Um, so, but that must mean what, you have a very big seventh and eighth house then?
My childhood one. So hang on. Yeah, I have got quite, yeah, my seventh and eighth houses are quite big. They're like almost a quarter of my chart.
Yeah. Okay. So that means your first and your second houses are also equally big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
I'm
means
the
you spend a lot of your time in your first and your second house every month, every year, and in your life.
Mm.
So that's a lot of, focus on your self-image and yourself and what you're doing out in the world, and and your material things and your values and your principles with your second house. And the eighth house being big, that's about transformation. And the sort of letting go of the things that no longer serve you, and just being yourself and being who you are and sharing that with the world. And your seventh house is all about your one-to-one deep personal relationships,
Mm.
like your marriage and stuff like that, right? And I remember your fella's really good at looking after things when you're on these workshops, right? So that
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
like you got a good, solid relationship there,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, with those houses being big, you just spend more time and you have more focus on those areas of your life, yeah. But so yeah, I mean it's kind of saying those things are more important in this life
Mm.
incarnation than working on all the spiritual stuff. It could be that you've done that many times in previous incarnations and you don't need to do that this time.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Okay, we're getting there now, guys.
Yeah, mine is much the same as Charlie's as well, like around
Yeah.
100 is my transcendence. But I
And
don't
how
know,
does that feel for you?
well, spirituality has been a big part of my life for a long time, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. So
and when,
it's been a part of your life all through your life,
Yeah.
rather than a
yeah,
phase you're entering that you need to work on to develop your spirituality. Yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Um, but I noticed like as my childhood ended at like 8.5, but like nothing really significant happened then. There were significant things that happened like at 7 and some pretty significant things that happened at like 7. But yeah, like if I'm looking at my chart, when some really significant things have happened over the last 20 years, there's like nothing there. There's no real aspects or
Right. But
planets.
okay, that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. But have you presumably you've got some sign cusps where you've moved signs
Mm.
and you've got house cusps, yeah? So moving from a house to another house or from a sign to another sign, that's also an event, and you can see what age that would have been at. Like if we look at mine here, my childhood ended it when I was 5, um, and over here when I was like 11, 12, coming up 13, I went I went from my fifth house into my sixth house. And
Mm.
this was the time when I first got a paper round and started, going around delivering papers to get some money for like pocket money and stuff, and bought my first bike and that kind of thing. So that was interesting for me. And at age 11, I went from Sagittarius into Capricorn. And then, yeah, like anyone at that age, I went into high school.
Yeah.
So I went into a far more structured, hierarchical, organizational structure where we had to wear uniform and all this kind of thing. Whereas before that, I didn't have to. That's just one
Mm.
example, and that could be the same for a lot of people. But yeah, okay. So there was nothing you can think of at 8.5.
No.
But see if anything comes to you over the next few days or anything like that. But yeah, have a look at what ages your sign cusps and your house cusps are. I
Mm.
mean, everyone's seventh house cusp, basically your descendant, that's all. Everyone's going to be the same age there, 23 and a half, basically. All right. But the cusps in between those will change in size. All right.
Sorry,
right.
Litmus, can I just your childhood thing, is that when it's at 5 in your fifth house? Is that when your childhood ends?
Well, mine is at 5, but yours will be
No,
wherever your fifth house starts.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So my childhood ended when I was nearly 3. Would that be right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could like perceptually there can be an event at that age that symbolically means the end of some kind of aspect of your childhood. Like for me, this moving home and school and everything, for me, that's what that was.
And
But
does it
you
make
know,
a
you might not
difference?
even know what it was at 3.5 or whatever it was.
And does it make a difference if it's going through a planet?
Yeah, if you've got a planet on that cusp, then it means that planetary energy is very active at that age and between those houses. Which planet have you got there?
Uranus.
Okay. So on your fourth and fifth house cusp, is it what, 3.5, you said?
No, this is before I'm 3.
Before you're 3.
Yeah, very close to being 3, but definitely just before I'm 3. Well after 2.
All right. So you've got very small first, second, and third, fourth houses then. Yeah. And your chart must be tilted over quite a lot.
I
So
don't
yeah,
know if
don't
I'd
forget it's
need
your
you for
fifth house,
that.
not your fourth house. Okay. So it'll be the V, the
Yeah,
Roman numeral V. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. All right. You can still see my slides, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. I'm just going to have a quick look at your chat because I've got it here somewhere. Helen H. Here we go. Let's just open that. So, yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's right. You've got like yeah, before you're 3, that's right. So
I
you
am
might want to
beautifully
think about
ready.
that or talk to anyone who's around then and see if anything happened at that point. Um, but with Uranus there, in some way, there's something about, your independence, your individuality and freedom at that point when you leave that childhood part and go into your maturity. You just kind of went into maturity at a very young age based on that. All right.
Okay. I just wanted to know if I was reading it right.
Yeah, you are reading
Okay.
it right. Yeah, I just had a look. Let's bang on.
Okay.
Okay. So the last one to finish off, just on the 2 hour mark, is which house and sign are you in now? So have a look what age you are now and find it on your chart and see where you are now and see if that resonates with you. So I'll show you mine again. So I'm 61. So I put a red ring around here. Look, so I'm just sort of here. So I'm in my ninth house, philosophy and higher learning, which definitely is kind of what I'm doing. And in Pisces, which is, about deep emotions and the psyche and all those spiritual things, which again totally resonates as well. So that again, that resonates for me. What about you? Where you are now, does that feel right with the house and the sign you're in? Anyone want to share? And then we're done.
I
I
am in Aquarius.
Okay, Aquarius. So that's all about uh, sharing in your individuality, expressing your individuality in groups and networks. Um, and it's about freedom, individual freedom, and expressing individuality and all that stuff. And Aquarius goes with the 11th house normally, okay? But you're in your ninth house, right, Helen?
Uh, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Oh no, you're not. You're
9,
in your you're in your ninth,
9,
right? Yeah.
9th. Yeah.
And you go into
Seventh
your
house.
looks like you go into your 10th at about 66, 7, something like that.
No.
Your MC, where it says MC, right?
Oh, right. Then in that case, then I'm in Capricorn, maybe.
How old are you now?
Same as you. Same year as you,
Oh
61.
yeah, of course you are, 61.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in your ninth house
I'm in Aquarius. I think I've just not long
in
turned.
in Aquarius. Yeah, that's right. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? When you think of Aquarian energy. Oh yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say in relation to your early on question, Helen, about the way society's changing and that people aren't living the same and things doing the same things they used to. You know, that's part of a cycle as well, because we've got Pluto moving from Capricorn, you know, which is government and control and institutions, into Aquarius, which is about freedom and individuality and all of that stuff and non-conformity. And we've got the Jupiter-Saturn cycle moving from Earth signs into air signs and fire signs
Oh,
for the
okay.
next 800 years. And that started on the winter solstice 2020. And right now, Saturn and Jupiter are square. So that's part of a bigger cycle, you know, and that's all pushing it towards things
Oh,
changing, you know, and
that
society
answers,
changing and the way we interact with each other changing and all of those bigger, longer term cycles as well. Yeah.
that makes sense now then in my head.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to share where they are now and if that makes sense or not?
Yeah, I'm in Aquarius at the moment in my 7th house.
Okay.
But I find it interesting. The beginning of my 8th house in Pisces almost line up. It's the closest one in my whole chart. Like within maybe 6 months or a year, I move from Aquarius into Pisces and then into my 8th, from my 7th to my 8th house. They're really, really close.
All right. Cool.
It's
Well, you know,
interesting.
you're in Aquarius, which is all, as we said, all about
Water.
expressing your individuality in
Mm.
groups and freedom and nonconformity and alternative thinking and rebelliousness and revolution and all those kind of things. And with Aquarius on your seventh house cusp, so your seventh house cusp is in Aquarius, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, it starts in Capricorn, but I'm already well into Aquarius. It looks like I've only got another 6 years in Aquarius.
Okay. So now any relationships with a significant other you get into, you're going to want your personal freedom within that relationship, you know? It's going to be
Yes.
important to not like lose yourself to the relationship, but to maintain your own, you know, for example, you might like to be with someone who's got their own place, you've got your own place, and you meet up and you go over to theirs and they come over to you, and but you're not like stifling each other and living on top of each other, that kind of thing. That's very Aquarius kind of way of doing things, you know.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the closest thing I have to a romantic relationship is in a different country. So that's definitely got some independence there.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Long distance relationship
Yeah, yeah, but it's I don't know. I
with
don't
the
know if it's
sun in
gonna get
Sagittarius or something.
I don't know. My son's in Libra, so I don't know if it likes that very much. Um,
Yeah, right. Because you want equality. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so
Out of interest, what is their sign, their sun sign?
Aries. So
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's just focus on the self, right? And drive and leadership and impatience, getting on with things, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, I don't know if it makes a difference. Like their North Node is in Libra, which is then like moving towards that. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and that's their like soul mission then.
mm.
Yeah. All right. We're pretty much done now, guys. Anyone else want to share anything about where they are now?
Yeah, I'll share
Go on then,
quickly.
Charlie.
I'm in my seventh house and I'm in Cancer and I'm going to be there for a little while, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're going to be in your seventh house quite a long time, right?
yeah, up until I am about 55, so another 10 years.
Okay. So that's all through your phase of your seventh house. You're really learning a lot more and more about yourself through your significant relationship
Mm.
and how you're seen by them as well, and what that teaches you. All right.
hmm
And it's in Aquarius, you said?
Cancer.
Sorry, Cancer. All right. So that's Cancer's all about home and family, right?
Mm.
So a good solid one-to-one partnership with a good home and family stable structure and all of that stuff and sensitivity. Um, yeah, all those nice, warm, cuddly Cancer things.
Sounds good to
And
me.
sounds good to me. It sounds like your chart's bang on there. So, all right, anyone else?
I'll go ahead and share.
Yeah, go on then, Mara.
I'm in Aries, and I will be in Aries until I'm 90.
Okay.
In which case I'll enter Taurus, but I had just hit Chiron and I'm approaching my North Node, so I'm in it to win it.
Yeah, you got quite a lot going on then.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. And I'm married
And
to an Aries.
okay,
Pulled it all in.
nice. And that sort of resonates with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's time for me to say no thank you to everybody else.
Yeah. Okay, and focus on your Aries.
Yeah.
Nice. And let's hope he does the same.
Yeah.
Well, my part's in Libra.
Yeah. We have opposite north south nodes. So
Oh,
he's learning
okay.
more Libra and I'm learning to be more Aries.
Well, that's really cool in a relationship because as you know, you in your past life and lives, you're coming from opposite places with those opposite strengths already, but you
Mhm.
both want to learn about the opposite things that the other one's got, right?
Yep.
So that's a great thing to have in a relationship because you're both learning all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, that was kind of it for tonight because you can go on and on like all of these things. There's a whole book about this here, but just want to recap. So, what we tried to do on this wisdom workout today is look at how the houses of astrology associated with the cycle of growth. So, hopefully, that came across when we went through the 12 houses and where you are in your life at each of those points. And then we looked a bit at the houses and the signs that they're in and on those different phases of our lives. We can't go into too much detail, but we touched on that. And we did a little bit about interpreting the meaning of the planets and their aspects. So where we had aspects at different times of our lives, linking those things together, and like the sun and the moon representing the mother and father and all that kind of thing. So I just wanted to give you a flavor tonight of what's in the book and how you can use it. I'm still learning from this, and I came across this book through a guy I randomly met on a beach in Spain. My girlfriend was in a retreat with horses, and I was on my own in the van for a while, and I was hanging out on this beach, and I was really drawn to this guy, Richard. And I got chatting to him and he told me all about this stuff. And he said how amazing it was and how he'd it had helped him in his life making key decisions and things like that. So, but I didn't get the book for years after that. But when I did, yeah, it really blew me away. So I hope it's whetted your appetite, and that's the end. All right, and thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. So I'll
Thank
stop.
you.
I'll stop sharing now, and yeah, here we are back in the room. So anyone want to say anything before I stop the recording?
I want to say something. Thanks.
Yeah, go on.
That was super interesting, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Abram. You're very welcome, mate. And yeah, if anyone wants to do a bit more in depth on their own chart offline, drop me a message on Telegram or whatever, and we'll have a look at it.
Cool.
All right. So thanks for joining today. I'll just say goodbye to everyone watching in, and I'm going to stop the recording.